This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, I'm calling to order the meeting of the Ad Hoc Cost Efficiencies Committee for May 17th at about 3:08 p.m. And we have 6 of our members here. I think Ed will probably be joining us, and then Bob Riggs said he'd be a little bit late. So we'll get going anyhow. I don't see anybody waiting out there for open time for the public. But we have a couple things. I've got one set of minutes, if I can pull them up, if I get the right ones. That's a good question. I think these are the ones. Okay, hold on. So let me try and share my screen. Okay, so we had one set of minutes, and this was when Randall came to visit. I guess it was the end of March that we had here, which I don't know. I sent these around yesterday, I guess, if everybody's had a chance to take a look at them or not. There were various attachments that Randall had, a lot of his capital replacement schedules, how the Chapter 90 money's been used on what roads, those kinds of things. And so I can put those as attachments to the minutes when I put it in mytown.gov. But this was basically pretty much the summary, because a lot of what he talked about was related to all those different charts that he passed around. He provided a long list of all the services that the the highway department provides, as well as the I think his entire list of a fleet, the various equipment that they manage, etc. So if anybody has any questions on this, if not, I'd take a motion to approve the minutes from last time.
I'll move to approve the March 29th minutes.
Okay.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, perfect. All right. I will get rid of that. All right, good. So today we were going to try and focus on the water department, and we don't have anybody coming in from the water department, but Tom Gaughan was able to provide us with a variety of information here. So I thought what I would do is just share the screen that he sent us. So it was basically this email. I had sent out a few questions ahead of time, like I had done with, I guess, Randall and others. And so there are some documents attached here too that we can open up a little bit later on here. But I just wanted to sort of get this out of my way here. But let's see. Can everybody see that okay? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So I think just to kind of go through this and see if we can make some sense out of this. I think what I'm thinking is this may enable us to generate some further questions that we might need to go back to Tom on, but we can at least start looking at some of this right now. So obviously what services they provide: water and fire protection, number of households on town water versus well water. And that's interesting, something that a lot of people ask, and I would not have known. So this is some good information. So 1,640 connections serving a population of 4,902, per capita of 61 gallons per person per day. Estimated private wells in town at 630. So there's actually fewer wells than I would have kind of thought in many ways.
Aren't there over 2,000 houses, though? So this number doesn't seem to add up totally. So,
well, I'm not sure if he's trying to add the 1,640 connections, right?
Yeah.
With 630 wells.
Okay.
That would have been my guess, but we could check that, I suppose.
Yeah, that's pretty close then.
Household wise. So that's what I'm thinking. So hydrant issues, how often are they needing replacement and maintenance, and currently not enough staff to inspect and maintain? I think that's an issue that will come up probably at our community conversation meeting next week. And one of the things I had learned from John Workman, which I was not aware of, that and I've become more observant. Actually, I drive around, but I did not know that the color of the hydrant top relates to the amount of water capacity it can pull up. So the lowest one we have, I think, is the red/silver perhaps, which is like what, 500 gallons a minute, I think it is, something like that. And then it goes all the way up to a green and a blue being the highest volume that you can draw from that hydrant. So looking around town, I didn't see too many other than the basic red ones, which tells me that either we don't have lots of water capacity, or we just haven't gotten around to maybe painting some of the updated ones. But even some of them, I mean, just some basic maintenance.
Yeah, the color coding is a national thing through all jurisdictions. But the problem with Southampton's going to be is you got that 120-year-old pipe.
Right.
So when you expand the pressure on that, you'll collapse the pipe underneath. So I would envision that once they get done with their $2.6 million project, that those particular hydrants within their capacity should shoot up.
Yeah, right? That's probably true. Yeah. And that's basically that area right from is it from Frommer Road or Brickyard all the way up to Palmer Meadow, I think, right? They're going to be laying new pipe all along College Highway during that, well, in three different phases from what I understand. But
because I mean, at that age, it's got to be cast iron or wooden pipes that are down there. I mean, seriously, if it's over 100 years.
Yeah. Well, yep. So anyway, current staffing, 2 full-time, only meeting minimum license requirements when no days off are used. System licenses required, IIDIT, and then the sanitary survey, which was attached, which we can look at later, did address some of the staffing, saying that there really ought to be 3 people on board to adequately maintain the services that are required.
So they're more or less self-funded, right? So do they not have enough income to support another person?
Well, good question. They have some retained earnings. I think the third position being held up at PPP.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Pending the wage study, because every position they have is up at senior department head level. Grade 6 or. Okay. And there's a lot of, special licensing requirements and so forth for these guys too, that, probably also make it difficult to even recruit somebody. But what he's saying here is 4 to 5 full-time employees, depending on skill level. But I think the survey itself, and again, that survey is 3 years old though. It was recommending 3, at least 3. So somewhere in that neighborhood anyway. What else? Challenges filling positions. So that's kind of been dealt with too in that survey. But again, I think finding people with the necessary licensing has been part of the challenge. So the way I'm reading this, current capacity, well capacity, 550 gallons per minute with an approved pumping rate. Let me see if I understand that. 0.7 million gallons a day. Is that right? Sounds like the maximum capacity.
Maximum. It says daily. Yeah, I don't know, daily. So we're currently at a withdrawal of 0.36. All right. So, and I think it might be easier too when we pull up a couple like the MOU. So we do have the interconnection with East Hampton. And I guess what's interesting there is what I was seeing is that we're apparently using about 97% of our own water from the well and only buying about 3% in from East Hampton, which I would have thought was actually more than that. But that's what I think the report said. So so the typical average, so a maximum capacity of 750 gallons a minute, but the average is 275 when needed. So, and let's see, we pay 85% of their current costs, I guess, when we buy this water from East Hampton. So, Janet, part of your question, the enterprise fund fee is used for water system operations, system improvements, and maintenance. Cannot be used for projects, I guess.
But it is used for their salary. I mean, it pays their salary.
Could be.
Could be self-sufficient.
Yeah. It should be, I think.
Yeah, it's not
Um,
currently
Right.
in the budget. The
yeah.
gen-
Hi, Ed.
They can be supplemented minorly by the tax rolls, but the goal of an enterprise fund is to be self-sufficient.
Right. Okay. Um, so they do have some grants that they've been working on. So they've got an asset planning grant that has been working at, I guess, mapping of all of their different assets. That started back in 2016. So every couple of years, I guess they get this grant and they keep on improving their own knowledge of what's going on in town with their own water system, I guess. Um, highway main replacement foamer to Pomeroy Meadow. So this is going to be starting, and I think Ed, you were just working on the bids on that first phase, was it not? Oh, you're muted, Ed. Sorry.
Yes, that's correct. They just got the bids back in, and CEI is going over them now. In fact, I think they have made a recommendation from earlier today to award for the commissioners to vote to award the bid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then whatever this is, Foamer to Clark, 1,700 feet of 12-inch water main to replace the aging 6-inch, so cast iron, John, maybe to answer your question there. Maybe not wood, but cast iron. um, and then other revenue generation possibilities besides meter charges. And this is a new one, water rates. So I'm assuming those that are on town water, right? Get on the meter charges will increase by 9% in the first billing cycle of FY24. So in September already, that's going to be a big jump. I don't think people are aware of.
There's going to be a lot of brown lawns once they realize that.
Yeah. So, and then just other stats he put in here. So 350 hydrants in town, 45 miles of water main. And this is where I saw here. So 97% of our groundwater is pumped in from our well, and 3% was purchased last year from East Hampton. So, any bits and pieces of questions around this that we'd like some clarity on before I open up a couple of these documents here? I'll stop sharing this one if so, and see what else I can find here that makes any sense to open up. So let me pull up this. Oops, got to hit the button first here. Hold on. Share screen. This one. So this is the overall map of the water system in town, which I'm going to see if I can make a little bit bigger here. Gosh, there we go. Maybe. Just so we can kind of see the legend here a little bit. So all these areas, I guess, all these wonderful lines is where the public water mains are, and all the little dots, I believe, are the hydrants. So
yeah, they're actually like little X's or crosses.
Right, something along those lines.
Yeah, they are hydrants.
Mm-hmm. So this, now that I did that, I've lost, of course, the legend that was there, but yeah, no, most of that's all pretty clear. That's exactly what that is. So there is at least a map in town of where all the hydrants are, which again would be helpful for the fire department too, which I'm sure they share this map. But there's that kind of mapping that exists if people ever wanted to know that. And then can you see this next one, or do I need to share this one too? I think I might have not shared that. Hold on. Oy. Stop sharing. Okay, let me try a new one. This button is not helping me here. Let me see what's in here. So this was I think the water survey. This was the one done in the sanitary survey done in 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago. And this, they talked about a wide variety of things here about licensing, and Tom is the one that colored this in here. So apparently we're with 2 certified licensed operators, we're at risk of non-compliance at certain times, especially if one's on vacation and the other person, has got to do the entire job himself, I guess. So water systems the size of Southampton should have a minimum of 3 to operate its distribution. And then it goes into all these kinds of, hang on, all this stuff in terms of the amount of coverage per mass Department of Environmental Protection, what all the operators are supposed to be doing, how many hours a day they're supposed to be doing it, etc. So there's lots of rules and regulations that we all have to abide by here in our water system. And one of the things that I guess I hadn't realized that back in 2017, so we had a problem apparently annually flushing all of our distribution system, our hydrants. And so then it's only been in the last few years that we've actually developed some kind of a formal flushing program, which I saw sign out, I believe, in front of Town Hall just recently saying that flushing is in progress. So I think it's started already for this quarter anyway. But I don't know, for over the next 3 years, Southampton provide written notification that is fully flushed each of its 4 zones. Again, we have very little oversight of it from the select board side. I mean, it's really the water commissioners, right, that are in charge of the oversight here. And so we kind of end up going on faith that this has all been done. I don't think there's any other reporting that I'm aware of that comes back outside the water commissioners, except when we have them come to select board and give us a report. But I guess I'm wondering if there's something that we could improve on that end too, just in terms of better communication with the water commissioners more regularly. I mean, we really don't have much to do with the water superintendent because he's under the charge of the commissioners themselves. But yeah, John?
I think it just goes back to the town continues to grow, and we're still operating the system as if we were a primarily farm community with 1,000 residents. We're up over 6,000 now. I don't know, but unless there was a write-in candidate that got the 5 or 8 votes, we now have a 2-member water commission.
There was somebody written in, Chuck Kanicki, apparently.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we have a 3-member water commission. Perfect,
wonderful, love it. But my issue here is this is just going to continue to grow. You got a water superintendent who is, properly licensed and, well compensated for his position. The next person in who is basically his number 2, but reading the meters, is well compensated. And we're going to add to this. It seems like we're just going along because let's keep doing it. Why aren't we having the same conversation that we've had with police and fire? That do we really want to continue to do? Should we continue to do it this way? Should we just instead of bringing in another high-paying $80,000-$90,000 person to supervise the meter reader that's already there to create this third, which is job description that's out there? Why aren't we just turning the keys over to East Hampton or to another community, consolidating water districts, or having those conversations? I don't know.
Yeah. And I don't know if those conversations have been had with East Hampton or not. We've got this MOU we'll look at in a minute, but go ahead, Janet.
I'm just wondering, I know we always feel like they're autonomous. I guess I feel like I've read articles in newspapers with other smaller communities where the select board is more engaged as the managing, group for even the water department and water commissioners. So I don't know if that's because we've always done it that way or if that's how it needs to be regulated. I don't know that.
I think some communities, I can think of a few in the hill towns, the select board are the water commissioners.
Correct. Basically, that's just the way it is set up here with an separate elected board of water commissioners here in Southampton.
But I don't mean even smaller communities. I mean, similar sized communities, not just the hill towns, that it seems like the final say goes in front of the select board, just like, kind of all the other regulatory departments. So I just don't know if that's because we've always done it that way, as John's kind of referring to.
And just to be clear, because this is recorded, I'm not advocating that we do turn the keys over to somebody else. But I am advocating that some body of people have a conversation about it and make a determination one way or the other on what to do. The other thing that I didn't see in here, and I thought I had it saved in my file, but I know I can get it because Randall sent it to me. I think it's 2016. There was a DLS review done. And in there, it recommended a complete overhaul of our highway department and water department and our parks and consolidating those three, I think it was just those three bodies, into one and creating a public works. So there again, I mean, look at the ballot yesterday. The only contested race was for Parks Commissioner.
Right.
I mean, that's great, but if we're not getting people to come out and fill these roles that we need, and how many went vacant and had to rely on writing candidates, the water department for one.
Yeah.
Should we be looking to consolidate the bodies and change to modernize with the time for a population that is coming on 7,000 and growing?
Good questions.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly an idea. And I don't know, I wasn't around here at the time. Why would that have not gone further, the whole idea of the DPW last time? Anybody remember why it kind of?
Well, the action step falls to the select board in the report. They have to take the next step.
Yeah.
But it has to do with changing the charter.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So it either never got dealt with by the select board, but it never got before the voters, from what you're saying, though, right?
Well, and the other thing is we can't change a charter that we don't have.
Explain.
You're muted. Yourself, Ed.
You're muted. Ed, you're muted.
Southampton does not have a charter, so you can't make changes to it. You can either establish a charter or you can do changes by special legislation.
But am I correct, Ed, that those steps, the next action step is at the select board level, right?
You are correct.
Yeah.
And so that would mean changing our entire form of government, though, right?
Well, if you want to do the whole thing, you go with the charter. If you want to do pieces of it, then you could do it through the special legislation, have our state senator and state rep run it through, much like increasing the liquor licenses.
Yeah. Yeah.
That we just did.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's just take a look here. I guess this one that caught my eye was on the bottom up here about the backflow prevention devices on lawn irrigation systems. That's one that I would have never have thought about. And I guess this is where, am I correct in assuming that this is where new households may have complete sprinkler systems already installed along with their lawns, and they're on an automatic system of some sort? Is that what this is all about?
Yeah, well, any irrigation system should have these. When the irrigation system was added to LaBrie Field, that came with a backflow preventer. As we move forward next month with the irrigation system for water in the cemetery, that will be required to have a backflow preventer on it also.
Okay.
I think that's plumbing code anyway. I think you have to have it if you're going to install. I mean, people might install their own lines, but if they have a plumber do it, they have to have the backflow. That's code.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine. I guess what's coming out at me in a lot of these is just, written notice or policy that seems to be talked about throughout this document. And I guess it would be nice if we could get a copy of that just to understand if we have anything in writing on some of these issues. So again,
It also sounds, sorry, Chris, it also sounds like this report is being written to justify the additional staff.
Well, this is from 3 years ago, though. This is 2020.
Right, when they were originally cited for one of them being on vacation, and then the one here got sick and couldn't do the testing.
Okay.
Because what it doesn't say in here either is that a lot of this testing or a lot of this license and certification, our DPW, our highway employees have.
Okay.
But they're under the highway department. They're not under the water department.
They're not underwater. Right. Yeah, so I mean, there's lots of things here, but again, this whole thing about our emergency response plan, updating hydrants, all these things. I mean, I don't know whether we have these things in place, so it'd be nice to know if we have any of these that have taken effect since this report came out. So I might just go back to Tom and ask for any copies of any of these things that are talked about here, like the emergency response plan for one, or something like that. I mean, I think as a town, we ought to know what we've got in place. These were recommendations put out, and did they, how many of them actually got implemented, I think. What else is on here? So this is a whole further thing here. I mean, there's lots and lots of information here, which we won't go through, but if anybody picked up anything, there's a couple of nice photos to look at here about our well on, and one of the things, actually, now that I'm on this topic, it came up at our couple select board meetings ago, our well down here on Glendale. Bob Fletcher farms around the Zipta area there, and he was saying how our well, this is the water tank up on Wolcott, how down at our town well that we've got beaver dams causing problems down there, and he wanted to bring that to our attention. So that's another thing that somewhere between the water department, highway department, I'm not sure who needs to look at that more closely, but it could be an issue that could be affecting our town well at some point in time. This does talk about people and their licenses. So we've got basically Tom and then his number 2 guy, Dennis Senecal, right now, that are on here. So this is it says it was updated. So I guess maybe this is maybe all that there is with that. May not be a separate thing to hand to us. I'm not sure. But anyway, there were lots and lots and lots and lots of things here about all the maintenance and required things that they've got to do. I don't know if anybody had any thoughts about this. Is like a 20-page document. So this was a really lengthy survey here. Anybody have any thoughts or comments on this particular thing offhand? Just trying to get information shared, basically, to let us know what's kind of going on. But what I wanted to find, and I think I pulled it out, or I thought I did, was that MOU with East Hampton. So I guess I didn't pull it up here. I had it a minute ago, I thought. Hold on a minute. Oh, there it is. Okay, let me find this one. So is this, no, that's not the one. Hang on, not this one yet. Wrong one. Come on. This is one. Okay, can we see that? So this is our MOU that was done in 2016 with East Hampton, and it's good for 20 years if you took a look through this. And so again, I guess what was news to me was that this connection came through the Cook Road and Pomeroy Street area. And so am I understanding correctly that when we get water from East Hampton, it's only going to this one part of town? Is that how I read that? I guess I would have thought it.
I would assume that's just how it feeds into the system through that.
Just gets into the system. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Because then it's got to go, I assume at some point it's got to get into the water tank. No, I mean, one would think, but I don't know that.
No.
No, it's not required to get into the water tank.
It's not required? No?
No.
Okay. Anyway, so what we have apparently is this arrangement. So as needed, we can get 650 gallons per minute or a maximum of 750. And that was based on a projected 20-year demand. I don't know how realistic that may be, but in over 20 years, 100 gallons per minute difference in 20 years time. But that's what the report says, the MOU says. And then we've got 3 locations where water will be provided, apparently. around Coleman Road and then over at Cook Road as well. Various times when the conditions don't allow for water to be given to Southampton due to situations perhaps going on in East Hampton. But again, what's interesting is that in spite of all of our summer shortages or whatever, it looks like we're not drawing as much as I would have guessed from East Hampton. But we are paying 85% of the residential rate in East Hampton. Is the way I read this was 85% of East Hampton's residential rate is what we're paying to get that water, right, John?
My understanding from Tom is because we have this MOU and because we're tied into East Hampton, regardless of how much water we have, if East Hampton's is triggered into a drought status because of how they measure their water, we automatically have to go there, even though we're drawing plenty of water from our well and don't have to purchase from East Hampton. Because of that connection, if East Hampton, who is under a different formula because they're set up as under a mill settings, if they trigger low water flow, even if we're pulling out our 1.6 million from our well without a problem, we have to go to drought status when they do it. So last summer when we kept doing it, and it wasn't for lack of water on our end, it was because East Hampton didn't have enough water for their system to support it. To support not going into a water conservation stage.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. And
I think you'll note that enforcement of lawn irrigation isn't heavily enforced in Southampton during those statuses because we have plenty of water.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true. I mean I've gone by places last summer. I know that we're certainly liberally watering their lawns, even though we were theoretically in a drought condition, or they were not, watering, on the off hours that you're supposed to water, one or the other. Yeah. So basically, this is a maximum effective 20 years. So I guess that would be a question of mine is, we're into this already 7 years. Is it time to take a look at this and look at any revisions that might be needed? Does anybody else think about that? Or is this something that's just kind of the status quo and that's the way it is? Are there other things that could benefit us that, could we renegotiate? I don't know what we're actually paying. There's nothing I saw that talked about the amount of money we've actually paid out to East Hampton offhand.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know what 85% of what number are we paying,
Right. Yeah, I guess I assumed it was 85% of East Hampton's residential rate. It says the current residential rate, so I'm thinking it's their residential rate, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah, and what is that? That's my kind of question.
I think it would be,
Have they reviewed it, the commissioners?
Yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of the hard part here. So it's an MOU, it's not a contract, but it's, it's something that I would think at some point in time ought to be, periodically reviewed over a 20-year period, just to make sure that it's still valid and still meeting the needs that we think it should. So I guess that might be a question back to say, has this, when has this been reviewed and should it be? And are there shortfalls that the commissioners are finding in this that, maybe could be tightened up, or, do we automatically have to tie into, what John was just explaining about the drought situation? I mean, could we not, have the leeway to make our own decisions on some of that? But maybe that's not the way it's all supposed to work. I'm not sure. And I guess the last thing to share maybe was the water quality thing here, which was, oops, did I not share that again? Gosh, keep hitting the wrong button. Sorry, guys. Let's find it again. Here we go. So this last one was done in 2022, I believe. So it talks about here the number of gallons that we took out of our well, which was the 97% taken out. And then this is what our tank holds up on Wolcott Road. And then we only purchased 3.6 million from East Hampton compared to the 131 million that we drew from our own well. So this sounds like we've got a lot of water availability, and yet I think, right, Ed, on the new property that we're going to be closing on Pomeroy Meadow Road, one of the issues was to provide the ability to have a second town well in the future should we need one, right? Is that was something that got negotiated?
Yeah, there's also the possibility of having a town well out on Pequot Road, which we have property for, but probably until the lake is cleaned up, that probably wouldn't become a reality. So, yeah, communities are always looking to find, shall we say, ways to add to that.
Right. But I guess, as we, John, you mentioned growth in town, and as we look at potential new developments, I mean, we're hearing word of, some, 40 houses going in on College Highway sometime in the future. So, as we look at new growth in town, how much are we taking into consideration our limited water resources? And, this makes it sound like we're not in a bind with our water, but, how much of that is really, really true? I don't know. I mean, right now we only have the one well, so.
Yeah, and if we're supplying 95 to 97% of our own water on a balance of a year, I'd say we're still in pretty decent shape.
So anyway, so that's what that was talking about. Then this was just talking about the water conservation thing, which I know they have from time to time put out just little public information pieces to the town about, watering and then checking for leaks and those kinds of things. And what else? That's pretty much it on there.
Their water restrictions are really not enforceable, correct?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. Ian, you might be one of the ones that would have to be on the enforcing end. I just don't know the reality of doing that. I mean, if somebody was really egregiously, watering their lawn, I guess somebody could stop and say, hey, you're not supposed to do that. We've got a water restriction in place. But beyond warning them, I don't know what we have.
Honestly, I'm not aware of the bylaw that has any type of specific consequence.
Right.
Yep. Excuse me. Lose my voice. Yep. So anyway, let me get out of this. So I think this was just more technical information, basically. Excuse me. So that's basically the information we have from the water department. I'm not sure where we want to take this.
Well, I mean, can we somehow, as John was saying, request that the select board revisit the 2016? I mean, it's kind of outdated at this point in time, but if no action was ever taken after that, I mean, is it worth revisiting?
The sanitary survey?
Yeah, the consolidation.
For the DP. Yeah.
There's got to be another, because the only one I can find is actually March of 2005. I mean, and some of that stuff's been done. Appointing a procurement officer, consolidating certain things. But I think at the very least we need, I think there's 3 reports that the DLF has done. And Chris, one of them is just on budgeting. and how the town can do budgeting. So, I mean, I think we should get all three of those reports. And if the committee hasn't read them, I mean, one's only 5 pages. This one, the 2005 that talks about the charter and all that, it's 30 pages. I mean, you know, not a lot of heavy reading.
Well, I think it would be good to share if you have that 2016 report on the DPW.
Yeah, I need to find. I got it. I got a hard copy of it from Randall, so I know I have a hard copy at home. But I'll text him and ask him to send it.
I just got the electronic version because I've been looking for that report for like 6 months to a year, and when I heard that you had gotten it from Randall earlier in this meeting, I texted him, and he has just sent it to me.
All right. So
that was
to share.
Yeah, I'm going to put it on the website. That's the one that the others were on the website. That one wasn't, and I couldn't find a copy of it to put it on there. But yeah, I can send it out to everybody too.
Perfect. Chris, you're on mute.
Sorry. So I think some next steps would be ideal. So one would be to, in my mind, would be to just, have they reviewed that MOU with East Hampton, and, should it be reviewed? Are there some shortcomings in it that they would like to maybe tighten up a little bit in our favor or not? Getting a copy of that and taking a look at what those recommendations were for the DPW. And then would that be a further discussion maybe with Tom and Randall? Would that be where we would go with that?
I think after you read that report, you might, I see it as a much bigger project.
Yeah, okay.
But it could definitely be something for the new select board to take on.
Okay. All right.
Certainly the points that John made about, or Chris or whomever made them, about so impossible for people to run for volunteer positions, it does make you consider that we have to change our form of government. I mean, we're not getting the volunteers.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the subject today was water, but I mean, this just it coincides with the schools too. You know, we have 11 elected representatives for our school committee for Southampton. That's a lot for our town.
Yeah.
It's what? It's 2%.
It's a ton.
Yeah, you've got what 5 at Norris and 6 at the regional.
Right. So if everyone's happy with the product that's coming out of the 2 schools, which I know they are, because nobody would not be happy with our educational system, then why can't we just consolidate, make it one whole regional system, and then 5, that would free up 5 people that we wouldn't need for that to go into other areas, regionalize. We could get the revenue coming back on that. You have the this whole review that I think that puts the cart before the horse, but it's on the agenda for Tuesday night, right, for the select board, the review of the fire department, fire and EMS. Where should we? What should we do now to position that for the future? It's continue as we are, outsource this piece, regionalize that piece, whatever it is. It's just everything's on the table. I believe the same thought and philosophy should be over here on water, and in this particular case, because it brings in our highway department. Do we take advantage and go to public works? What are the pros and then the cons? Because to do anything, we're going to have to get buy-in of initially the commissioners.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And, when you have your own group, you sometimes just don't want to give things up.
Quite true. Yeah. But back on the school for just a second. I mean, you talk about the difficulty with, 11 or 12 people in terms of our school committees. I mean, I think we had pretty much empty spaces on the ballot, did we not, for Hampshire Regional for the election? I think we had a couple of empty spots that may or may not have been filled. I don't know if they had write-in votes or not, but I don't think we had anybody step up on the ballot or at the caucus that I recall.
For regional.
For the regional. Yeah, Norris was fine, but I think for the regional. So that does present a challenge of its own right. So back on the notion of the DPW idea, after we read this, as you say, I guess I'm assuming that what it might take would be to have some, again, as much as I don't like studies, sometimes they're necessary, but some sort of an assessment or study done in terms of the real reality and the feasibility, all the pros and cons about consolidating into a DPW or not, right? Unless that was already done 6 years ago or 10 years ago and it just needs to be updated, or did we ever get to that point of looking at all the possibilities of yes and no on what it would mean in terms of impact and so forth?
Or as John said, consolidation too, or regionalization. Not that we're saying that's what we should do, but it's something we should review.
Consider, yeah, right. But I mean, would we bring in, like, I don't know, I mean, an outside group like PVPC or somebody to facilitate a study for us, a feasibility study about that kind of thing, in terms of, what are the pros and cons of thinking about doing that?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're going to bring something, I would vote to bring in DLS.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't suggesting anybody, but just an entity if we needed to. Yeah.
Because I'm still not, I'm less than thrilled at the results we got from the HR study.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we'll see how the Collins Center does with this report that's due out from them.
Right.
But, again, there's 351 communities in Massachusetts. We're not the only ones in this spot.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Learning from our peers and where they got the expertise and the folks at the state who are looking at this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can I just ask, John, what is the HR study?
That was
That's the PVPC thing?
The Pioneer Valley Planning Commission
did
a HR review. Hampshire Regional Central Office opted out the whole school system from the program, but it was us, West Hampton,
like
7 communities.
Yeah, about 6 towns, I think, that were involved in it, right?
Yeah. As to whether the end product was, they ended up coming back with a recommendation for an a la carte, buy services as needed. And we were the biggest community. So with Southampton move forward with a professional SHRM certified HR person and then loan out the other communities, but it just kind of died on the vine. Didn't really go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. But to have an actual, knowledgeable HR person to manage our department would be great. But yeah, that didn't really turn out to be much of anything yet, unless it's still percolating. I don't know, but we haven't heard that it's formally closed, I don't think. But I don't know offhand on that one. So, okay. Well, I think, as we get, Ed just sent around that study, so we'll take a look at that and maybe see what we need to do as some next steps here. Anybody else have any thoughts and recommendations as to how we should proceed with this idea? I mean, we've had a chance to talk to all of our largest groups, and especially, police and fire and highway, and now at least hearing some things from water. And I'm sure at another meeting I don't know if we'd get Tom gone, but we could get one of the water commissioners, I'm sure, to come in and try to answer some questions for us. Maybe Tim Godet or somebody could join us at a future meeting if we wanted to. But part of it is we've been hearing about some of the challenges and some of the the shortfalls, and how do we help take those recommendations, or how do we make recommendations out of that, I guess, is the question. We've heard some of the issues, but then this would be one where we might be able to move forward and say, well, let's take a step at looking at some sort of regionalization or consolidation. Regionalization had been one of our topics, and we weren't really getting anywhere with it early on. So maybe we're kind of at a point where we could start considering at least examining that a little bit more closely. And if it doesn't look like it's a feasible thing, then so be it. But at least, to put it on the table to take a look at would be one thing. So, all right. Anybody have any other thoughts? I do still want to write up stuff. We, when we got ourselves reappointed, we went only until June because we weren't sure where we were going to go going forward. So technically, we would have one more meeting before the committee expires, unless we reauthorize the committee. What's anybody's druthers? Are we thinking that in general this has been an informative process? I think my challenge is just trying to figure out how we can pull some of this together. I think some of the smaller changes have happened at the town hall level. Some of the, the cost savings things have happened already with some of our work that we did early on, but trying to figure out where we go from here is kind of a question mark in my own mind. Part of me says that the rationale for the committee is still valid. I'm just not sure where we need to follow the path on this one. So I'm open to any ideas, or anybody else that would like to take the lead. I'm more than willing on that too. But
what cost efficiency, one thing I realized that every department seems to be pretty efficient in and of themselves as a result of the budgets. What about revenue? What about discussions about improving revenue in the town, and having open discussions about that? Because I think if there's going to be any substantial change for the good, it's more about obtaining more revenue. Because I think we've established through this committee, which I think is great, and I've learned so much through it, and I think we should continue. But I also think that one of the things I realize is that every department seems to be as efficient as possible with what they have, and what they can cut. It's not creating any substantial changes. I just wonder if we can have discussions, or if this is the right committee to have discussions about how do we generate more revenue in town to support, these increases in pay that we should be giving to employees, and maybe preventing level budgeting every year.
Yep. Well, I mean, we've heard a little bit. I mean, various fees, like ambulance fees, for example, have been increased, or maybe at the transfer station, or now maybe the water, the water meter fees or whatever. I mean, so there's little bits and pieces of that happening. But again, does that have, any solid impact? I mean, I guess it should be enough to help cover that own department, but it may not be broad enough to make a bigger impact town-wide. I'm not sure.
To Ian's point, though, and I'm not sure, I actually haven't looked into this, though I might be way off base here. Ed will jump right in and correct me. What about revenue? When I think about ways to increase revenue, I think of the meals and use tax, which then comes into restaurants, and what appears to be the town always doing spot zoning instead of I guess I wonder, how old is the master plan on what areas should be commercialized and which areas shouldn't be? And is everybody in agreement, meaning the citizens, that really should be commercialized, and let's push for that, start marketing development in those areas if that's where we want to go, right? Because that's one way to increase revenues. How to better use, are we maximizing the assets that we have at our disposal? And our biggest asset is our land.
Right. Well, I think two things. First of all, the master plan itself was created and adopted in 2013, and then has been updated in the last 3-4 years, followed up by the community survey we did in terms of people's priorities, et cetera. But in that original master plan, I'd have to look at it, but I believe there were certain segments of certain areas of town that were designated for growth. And I don't know how much our actual pattern of growth has followed those areas. I'd have to actually pull out that map and share that around and see what that looks like now. I can't tell you off the top of my head on that. I do sort of share your thought that it doesn't feel like there's a lot of I guess, overall planning for where developments should occur or where businesses should be. Now, some of that is obviously limited by our water and sewer capabilities in town too. So there's, not a lot of leeway there, but there definitely, I think in the original master plan, there were some areas that were kind of thought of as being probable areas for growth, but I'll see if I can pull out that map and pass that around.
Because it also ties in with ensuring that for all the future job openings that will be coming up at some point, that we're not just recycling the old job descriptions. Because we have a lot of key positions that are open or going to come open. Do we look for somebody that maybe has a stronger background in community development or not really that planning, I guess.
Planning, yeah.
I don't know.
Or of a professional planner type, like East Hampton has, for example. They've got their planning person, I mean, we've had a planning consultant that has been working with the planning board, but that's been pretty much narrowly focused on the zoning bylaws, from what I understand, which has been a great need to get those updated. But I don't know what the vision is for, trying to attract any particular commercial activity to town offhand. But there are many things, as I know the master plan committee has been trying to update and just kind of review periodically where we are with the recommended strategies and goals. And there's definitely several that pertain to water commission, and others, many of them fall to planning board. And so there's things that we need to make sure are getting looked at or considered whenever there might be anything coming to town, whether it's a subdivision, whether it's new business, whatever. I mean, there's certain recommendations that have been laid out in that master plan, which had been accepted by the town, that, need to be referred to, that, shouldn't be just sort of shoved aside. So I think maybe if nothing else, the representation on the master plan committee, having people from the various boards like that, should be a way to get that information back and make sure that it's being taken into consideration each time there's something new that kind of pops up along those areas. Okay. So I think let's probably call it for today and set a meeting maybe about 3 weeks out or sometime. I'll pick a date somewhere in mid-June and see if we can have one more meeting anyway before the end of June. And then we'll talk about getting reappointed. But if the group would like to kind of hang in there, I'd like to kind of continue, but I'm willing to pass leadership on to somebody else if anybody would like it. Or I will continue, one or the other, struggling, or co-leadership, whatever we want to do. But I think this at least has got us thinking about some ideas, and it sounds like we generally think we're doing a worthwhile thing to start exploring some of the options here anyway. So thanks for being part of this.
Between now and the next meeting, do you want us to read that 16 report and then maybe set 15 minutes on that agenda? Yeah,
that would be good. I think that would be great. Yep. So very good. All right. So with that, let's take a motion to adjourn.
You want to schedule a meeting, or you're going to?
Well, we can. Yeah, we could. Sure. Let's do that. Then people can plug it in their calendars and have a good date in mind. Wednesday's usually the day we've been doing it, and that's usually the day that Bob Riggs normally can come, and he had intended to be here today, but I guess he got waylaid. So I would suggest maybe the 14th or the 21st.
21st works good for me.
21st? All right. Yeah. Okay, let's do the 21st at 3:00. How's that? And I will post that before I forget it, and we won't run into problems. Good. All right. Perfect. Thanks, guys. So I'll have a motion to adjourn, please.
Moved.
Second.
All right. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.